Welcome back to F1 Burnouts. The first Bahrain preseason test is done. 3 days in the Sakir Desert, 11 teams, 22 drivers, and the drama? Oh, we got drama for days. We had Verstappen threatening to quit, Hamilton having a 20-year low, a 19-year-old kid topping the timesheets, and memes, so many memes. Today, I'm ranking every single team from dead last to the top. We're talking about how the drivers are actually feeling about these new cars, what went viral outside the paddock, and what each team desperately needs to fix before Melbourne. We're counting up from 11 to 1. Let's go. But first, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Actually, it's more like a herd of elephants. The drivers hate these cars. And I don't mean the usual preseason moaning where everyone says, oh, we're not quick enough, we need to find more downforce. No, this is different. Max Verstappen, 4-time world champion, called these new cars Formula E on steroids, anti-racing, not fun, not like F1. And when someone asked him if that lack of fun might make him leave the sport, he said, and I need you to hear this, a winning car for me doesn't matter. It needs to be fun to drive at this stage of my career. He then added that he's exploring other things outside of Formula One to have fun. The best driver of his generation openly saying winning isn't enough anymore. That's not just a soundbite. That should worry everyone at the FIA.
And he's not alone. Lewis Hamilton said it was the lowest grip he'd ever felt in 20 years at Bahrain. 20 years! He compared the Ferrari to a GP2 car. Lando Norris said his McLaren feels like F2 machinery. These are the 3 most decorated active drivers in the sport, all saying the same thing. The new 50-50 power split between combustion and electric means you're constantly lifting and coasting, managing deployment, massing the battery. The removal of the MGU-H means turbo lag is back. And race starts? Oh, we'll get to the starts. That's its own disaster. Hamilton actually said fans would need a university degree to understand the new regulations. And in news that shocked absolutely no one, he's probably right. But here's my take. It's week 1. The deployment software isn't optimized. The teams are still learning these power units. I think by mid-season, these cars will feel dramatically different. But right now, the vibes are not great.
Now, before we get to the rankings, let me tell you about what went viral outside the paddock, because the internet had an absolute field day. Verstappen's quotes were everywhere, but here's what really sent F1 Twitter into meltdown. Max liked the memes. American racing driver Jordan Taylor posted a series of memes about Verstappen trashing the 2026 cars, and eagle-eyed fans spotted that both Verstappen and his teammate Ishaq Hadjar liked them on Instagram. The man didn't just criticize the regulations, he actively endorsed the jokes about it. You can't make this up. Then there's the start procedure chaos. They tried a simulated race start on Friday. 7 cars lined up. Only 3 got away cleanly. Antonelli, Hadjar, and Perez managed it, but Piastri, Albon, Ocon, and Colapinto all had issues. Piastri put it bluntly, starts need to be addressed. It's a pretty complicated process now to have a safe start, let alone a competitive one. The removal of the MGU-H means drivers have to rev the engine for about 10 seconds before engaging the clutch. 10 seconds, just sitting there revving, hoping nothing goes wrong. If this isn't fixed, the first few race starts are going to be absolute carnage.
And then there's the controversy that could reshape the entire season before it even starts, the compression ratio dispute. Here's what happened. Mercedes and Red Bull found a way to comply with the new compression ratio limit of 16.0 when the engine is cold, which is when the FIA measures it. But when the engine heats up during running, the ratio increases. More compression means more power. Ferrari, Honda, and Audi cried foul. They said it's a loophole. Mercedes and their customers said the regulations are crystal clear. The FIA proposed a mid-season rule change with a vote before Melbourne. If the supermajority passes it, a new hot temperature test kicks in from August. Toto Wolff admitted a rule change would be quite damaging to Mercedes, which, translated from team principal speak, means they know exactly what they're doing and they don't want anyone to stop them. This one's going to run and run. Keep your eye on it.
All right, let's get into the rankings. We're counting up from last to first. And at number 11, Aston Martin. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. 206 laps, the fewest of any team by a massive margin. That's half of what Williams did, and Williams missed the entire Barcelona shakedown. They were 4 seconds off the pace. 4. And GPS data available to all 11 teams showed that the Honda engine alone accounts for 1.5 seconds of that gap. That's 37% of their deficit coming from the power unit. Adrian Newey admitted before the test that they were months behind because their wind tunnel wasn't operational until last April. The car overheated, there were data anomalies with the engine, and Lance Stroll went off into the gravel and caused a red flag. Stroll himself was brutally honest. He said, "Right now we look like we're 4 seconds off the top teams. 4.5 seconds. It's impossible to know fuel loads, but we need to find 4 seconds of performance." That's a driver who knows the reality of his situation. Alonso started on the slow side, as he put it, and Aston Martin confirmed they're not at the level of other teams. Now look, this is Adrian Newey, the greatest aerodynamicist in history. New chassis, new engine partner, late wind tunnel. If anyone can recover from this, it's him. What do they need? Laps, laps, and more laps. Honda needs to find serious performance and patience. My prediction? A painful first half, but the second half of the season could be a different story entirely.
Number 10, Cadillac, the brand new 11th team. And honestly, I came into this expecting a disaster and walked away quietly impressed. They logged over 1,700 kilometers. That's about 5 full race distances. Both Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas completed full race simulations. Less than 12 months ago, as team principal Graham Loudon put it, they didn't even have an entry, let alone a car or some factories. And here's the detail that made headlines. Cadillac used fake Pirelli tires in their wind tunnel development. Not because they were cheating, but because they didn't get their actual Pirellis until late January, and when they arrived, they were a different shape than expected. So they had to re-optimize their entire development program on the fly. Sure, Bottas managed just 8 laps one morning before stopping, and Perez caused a red flag on day 2. But for a team built from scratch, these are growing pains, not existential crises. What do they need? Everything, but in the best possible way. My prediction? They'll be last or second to last, but they'll finish races, and by mid-season, they'll start surprising people.
Number 9, Racing Bulls. 3 seconds off the pace. Now, they're running the Red Bull Ford engine, which we'll talk about later because it's genuinely impressive, but the chassis just isn't keeping up. Liam Lawson was decent and actually completed a solid 84 laps on medium tires in one morning, more mileage than anyone in that session. But rookie Arvid Lindblad had his afternoon wiped out by a power unit issue, and Hadjar, on the Red Bull side, also had reliability woes. Pierre Gasly's words about the new era ring true here too. It's just very different. Gasly said he's going in with an open mind, and after a couple of races, they'll understand how it is. What do Racing Bulls need? More downforce, better reliability, and honestly just time to develop around the new power unit architecture. My prediction? Lower midfield for the opening rounds, but the Red Bull engine gives them a development ceiling that's higher than you'd think. Number 8, Williams. Now here's a team that earned every bit of respect this week. They missed the Barcelona shakedown entirely. Production delays meant they had 0 running before Bahrain. Other teams had 5 days in Spain to learn their cars. Williams had nothing. So what did they do? They showed up and drove 422 laps, joint highest of the entire test, tied with McLaren. Carlos Sainz was 7th fastest overall. For a team starting from absolute 0, that's remarkable. Sainz has been talking about how different these cars are to drive, and you could see it. But the man just put his head down and extracted everything from the Williams. Alex Albon was solid too, though he had issues during the practice start. What do they need to improve? Single lap pace. They're about 3 seconds off the front, and while mileage is incredible for learning, they need raw speed. My prediction? Williams will be reliable midfield runners. And Sainz? He'll drag that car to places it has no business being. He's done it before, and he'll do it again.
Number 7, Audi. And this is the story of the test for me from a pure engineering perspective. They rocked up to Bahrain with a completely new car, a B-spec with radical sidepods, narrow vertical inlets that immediately drew comparisons to Mercedes' zero-pod concept from 2022. The top surface has a channel to ease airflow to the rear. The widest part of the side pod has been moved further back to stop front wheel wake from disturbing the airflow. And they've switched to a twin-pod active aero system on the front wing. It's It's bold, it's aggressive, and Nico Hülkenberg said they've taken a good step forward in terms of performance and reliability. Gabriel Bortoleto is finding his feet as a rookie, but the trajectory matters more than the position here. They're 2.5 seconds off the pace, yes, but from Barcelona to Bahrain, the improvement was visible. What do they need? Downforce. The concept looks clever on paper, but they need to unlock it on track. My prediction? Audi makes the biggest jump from Test 1 to Melbourne of any team on the grid.
Number 6, Alpine. Now here's a team that's been through an identity crisis, ditched the Renault engine, took backlash from Instone, and switched to Mercedes power for 2026. And you know what? Early signs suggest it's working. Steve Nielsen, their managing director, said they've made a much better car than last year. There are even some bold predictions floating around about a podium at Melbourne. Franco Colapinto was 10th fastest, Gasly was 15th, and both had on-track stoppages. But the underlying pace, when the car was running, was genuinely encouraging. Gasly's attitude is refreshing. He said F1 is going to evolve so fast, and there's a starting point, but it doesn't mean it stays there forever. That's the mindset of a driver who's been through enough in his career to know that preseason doesn't define the season. What do they need? Reliability. Both drivers stopped on track. But if they can keep the car running, the Mercedes engine gives them a platform that Renault never could. My prediction? Consistent point scores, and a podium at a chaotic race isn't crazy.
Number 5, Haas. Yes, Haas at number 5. Oliver Bearman elevated that car to 3rd on the timesheets on day 2, just 1.5 seconds off Leclerc's best time. He completed 200 laps across the 3 days, 390 laps total for the team, 4th highest of anyone. Ayao Komatsu said they're on target. On target! When was the last time Haas said that in preseason and didn't immediately jinx it? The Ferrari power unit is clearly giving them a boost, and Bearman is proving he belongs at this level. Esteban Ocon, in his first test for the team, added solid, consistent laps. Haas are also notable for what they didn't have: drama. No red flags, no major breakdowns, just quiet, efficient running. What do they need? Another few tenths on a single lap. Their race pace looks strong, but qualifying is where they'll need to make the jump. My prediction? Surprise package of 2026. Best of the rest regularly, and if a race goes chaotic, don't be shocked to see Bearman on a podium.
Number 4, Red Bull. Now, before you say anything, yes, Max Verstappen was only 7th fastest, over a second off the pace. And he spent half his media time telling the world how much he hates driving these cars. But here's what everyone in the paddock is really talking about: the Red Bull Ford engine. This is their first ever power unit, 3.5 years of development. And Toto Wolff, the Mercedes boss, said, "I was hoping that they were worse than they are because they have done a very good job." When your biggest rival calls your engine the benchmark, that's not politicking, that's genuine concern. The GPS data showed Red Bull had superior energy deployment on the straights compared to every other car. The engine is a weapon, but the car around it needs work. Hotjaw's water leak limited him to 13 laps on one day. A hydraulic leak disrupted day 2. And Verstappen, well, he's not exactly radiating enthusiasm. He said he's exploring other things outside Formula 1. He's eyeing the Nürburgring 24 hours in May. Think about that. The 4-time world champion is more excited about endurance racing at the Nürburgring than driving his own F1 car. Red Bull's technical director Pierre Vacher was honest. He said Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari are ahead of them right now. What do they need? Chassis development and a happier Max. My prediction? They'll be in the mix, but not fighting for wins at the start. And whether Verstappen stays motivated, that's the real question mark.
Number 3. And yes, I know what you're thinking. As a McLaren fan, this physically hurts. McLaren at Brie, the reigning Constructors' Champions, behind Mercedes and Ferrari. Now, there's a beautiful moment to start with. Lando Norris, world champion, seeing the number 1 on his car for the first time. He called it surreal, unbelievable. He said it's still a crazy thing to see, especially when you see it on the timing screens. It's cool. And he backed it up on day 1, going fastest with a 134.669. But then, reality set in. On day 2, Norris was brutally honest. We're not really close to Ferrari. We're certainly not bad, but we're not quick enough. And the race simulation data told the real story.
Andrea Stella admitted McLaren's long-run pace was a step behind Hamilton and Antonelli, maybe half a second. Oscar Piastri had an even tougher time. The car was squarely under braking, front lockups at turn 10, the rear stepping out at higher speeds. Observers noted the new McLaren moved a lot more under braking with Piastri at the wheel. Inconsistent turn-in, variable on entry. Piastri himself expects McLaren to be among the top 4, but stressed they certainly don't have the performance advantage they had at the start of 2025. And here's where it stings most. They did 422 laps, joint highest with Williams. The mileage is there, the reliability is there, the pace just isn't. Not yet. But here's the but I'm clinging to. McLaren are the best development team on the grid. The car they bring to Melbourne won't be the car they have in September. What do they need? Downforce and rear stability. My prediction? Third fastest to start, but by mid-season, they'll be back in the fight. They always are.
Number 2, Ferrari. Now this is where the subplot gets really juicy. Charles Leclerc posted the 4th fastest time overall, but his race simulation was the headline. 70 laps, flawless, genuinely impressive long-run pace. He kept it clean, said all the right things. The focus has to stay on ourselves and our work. Classic Leclerc, professional, measured. But the other side of the garage, that's where the real story is. Lewis Hamilton. Where do I even begin? He admitted to a 20-year low, said it was the lowest grip he'd ever felt at Bahrain in his entire career, compared the car to a GP2 machine. He spun on day 1, got stuck in the garage for long periods with the screens up, and on day 3, he stopped out on track, triggering the final red flag of the test. And then, to top it all off, he was spotted visiting the Mercedes hospitality suite, chatting with his old team. Because nothing says I'm happy at my new team quite like popping in to see your ex during testing week.
But here's the thing, nobody wants to say out loud. Hamilton's also dealing with a race engineer shakeup. Ferrari moved Riccardo Adami off his car, and Hamilton admitted it's detrimental. His temporary engineer, Carlos Santi, is only in the role for a few races before being replaced by yet another engineer. Hamilton said, "It's quite a difficult era. The solution I have isn't long-term. So early in the season, it's all going to be switching up again. That's detrimental for me, going into a season where you want to arrive with people who've been through thick and thin, and I can't. I feel for the guy. New team, new regulations, lowest grip ever, engineer musical chairs, and he's 41 years old. But this is a 7-time world champion. He found pace on day 3. Ferrari completed 420 laps with strong reliability. Fred Vasseur is convinced rivals will bring huge upgrades to Test 2. What does Ferrari need? Hamilton needs to find comfort in the car. The Leclerc-Hamilton dynamic is already tilting Charles' way, and if that gap grows, it'll create tension. My prediction? Ferrari will be genuine title contenders, but Leclerc will be the lead driver, and Hamilton will need every ounce of his legendary adaptability to close the gap.
And at number 1, Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli, 19 years old, set the fastest lap of the entire test, 1 minute, 33.669 seconds. George Russell was right behind him at 133.918, the only 2 drivers to break the 134 barrier. A Mercedes 1-2 on the final day. And the paddock? The paddock is buzzing. There is a widespread belief that Mercedes heads into 2026 as the championship favorites. Now, Antonelli, let me tell you about this kid. His first day in the new car, he said, "Super big day for the team. I have to say it was a good day. I'm super happy." And when asked about competing with Russell, he didn't flinch. "I think it's going to be quite fun competing with him. I'm really looking forward to it." Toto Wolff played the wise guardian. "There's no doubt about his speed and his racecraft, but I don't think we should expect him to be like George all the time. George is one of the best. Kimi's 19. He's going into his 2nd season. We're going to see another step." That's Toto managing expectations while quietly knowing he might have the fastest driver on the grid. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Mercedes had serious reliability issues. Antonelli completed the fewest laps of any driver through the test. Suspension problems on day 1, power unit issues on day 2. Russell admitted they struggled with reliability, and there's the compression ratio controversy hanging over them. If the FIA votes to close that loophole from August, Mercedes could lose a chunk of their performance advantage mid-season. What do they need? Reliability, full stop. The pace is there, but if they can't finish races, none of it matters. Russell put it well. They're not bulletproof. My prediction? fastest car on the grid, but the championship won't be decided by speed alone. If they sort the reliability, it's theirs to lose. If they don't, Ferrari or McLaren will pounce.
All right, rapid-fire championship predictions. Constructors, Mercedes. The regulation change plays to their strengths, and when the W17 is running, nothing's faster. Runner-up, Ferrari. Leclerc is on a mission. Third, McLaren. It hurts to say it, but they'll develop their way back. They always do. Drivers' champion? I'm going bold. Kimi Antonelli. The 19-year-old, fastest in testing in potentially the best car, and he's got that fearless rookie energy. Russell will push him, Leclerc will push him, Verstappen, if he can find any joy in driving, will be right there. And don't write off Hamilton. The man always finds a way. But this is Antonelli's moment. I can feel it. Now, let me leave you with 5 quick key takeaways from this test. Number 1, nobody is telling the truth about their pace. Mercedes says they're not favorites, Ferrari says Mercedes is hiding performance, Red Bull says they're fourth, McLaren says they're not quick enough. It's preseason testing, and the sandbagging is an Olympic sport at this point. Number 2, the Red Bull Ford engine is the real deal. Wolf called it the benchmark, a brand new manufacturer, 3.5 years of development, and they've produced something that has every rival worried. Number 3, reliability will decide this championship. In a regulation reset year, the team that keeps both cars finishing will dominate. Expect a lot of DNFs early on. Number 4, the driver adaptation gap is real. Hamilton, Piastri, and several others are clearly struggling with a new driving style. Active aero plus energy management equals a completely different discipline. The drivers who adapt fastest will score the biggest early results. And number 5, this might be the most competitive grid in F1 history. 11 teams, the top 4 separated by about a second. Haas and Alpine looking like genuine point scorers. Even Cadillac, a team that didn't exist 18 months ago, completed more race distance than some established teams. The chaos potential at Melbourne is enormous.
That's all for today's episode of F1 Burnouts. The second Bahrain test starts this week, so expect more drama, more controversy, Ferrari bringing new updates, and probably more Verstappen memes. If you enjoyed this breakdown, share it with someone who needs more F1 chaos in their life. Until next time, keep the rubber on the track. And remember, in testing, nobody tells the truth, but the stopwatch never lies. See you in Melbourne.